Hi everybody, my name's Scott Mason. This is my first video for the Contra Costa Chess Club. I'm going to show you a game I recently played in a quad when I was traveling in South Carolina. In Columbia, it was a game in 20 quad quick chess. My opponent in this game, his name is Gilbert Holmes. He's rated 1886. My rating is about 1980-ish. I ended up winning this game. So the opening, we're going to rewind here. The opening was an accelerated dragon, e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, g6. The points of this move are that black is attempting, unlike the normal dragon where he plays d6, to get in d5 and equalize without having to play d6 and losing a tempo. The other reason he also plays this is it's going to avoid the Yugoslav variation, which is the most dangerous variation that black has to worry about typically when he plays the dragon. And he can always transpose if he chooses to. The downside of playing this is he does have to face a Maroczy bind variation, which is what I ended up playing. So the point of this is that it puts a very big cramp on d5 and ensures white a very nice long-term space advantage. Black has basically is going to play for counterplay by getting in one of the three breaks, either b5, d5, or f5, and hopes if he can get in one of those three breaks, he typically is going to have at least an equal game. So anyway, play continued fairly normally. Knight f6, knight c3, d6, bishop e2, knight takes knight, queen takes knight, bishop g7, both sides castled, and then I continued my development with bishop d2, which is probably not the most aggressive square. Bishop e3 or bishop g5 might be more normal. Alright, black continued bishop g to e6. I backed up, so I got out of the pin on the long, or the potential discovery on the long diagonal, and played queen d3. Black played over rook c8, threatening the pawn on c4, putting some pressure on it, so I played b3 to cover that. And then this has all been book up to here, at least according to my database. And at this point, black kind of broke from book, played knight g4. This is actually not an uncommon idea. It happens in some other variations as well. Black's basically relocating the knight over to e5. So anyway, I continued rook on a to d1, and then black again should have continued with the correct plan of playing a knight to e5, and then I would end up with playing queen g3, and because of my space advantage, I'd probably have a slight edge. Black's a little cramped and has to work to try to figure out how he's going to get out of things here. Ultimately, might play those on the queen side, so I'm probably a little bit on the wrong side of the board here. Alright, but my opponent instead played queen c7, which allowed me to get in the move knight d5, which is actually a good move, forces the trade of bishops. Unfortunately, I didn't make the best of choices in the game. He played bishop takes knight, and instead of the best move here is simply to play pawn takes pawn, with the idea of putting the rook on the semi-open file and putting some pressure on this backwards e pawn. Anyway, unfortunately, I decided to be trickier and play taking the bishop. He blocked, pretty much an important move there to keep your piece and not lose material. And then I played h3, which is kind of a sharp move. The idea, obviously, bishop takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, and I get some nice control over the f5 square. However, he can just play f5 immediately, which is actually a great move for him and actually equalizes the game. So pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop, and black is equalized. Now, overall, long term, I think I do have a slightly better position here. I've got the two pawn islands versus black's three. And then this pawn is kind of going to become weak, these two hanging pawns in the center. The simple plan is simply just to bring the rook over and put some pressure on the two center files, and I think that that we have a slight advantage. Now in these type of situations, what you want to do is try to trade off the bishop, because you're better off with just the heavy pieces on the board. The correct way to do that would be to play the bishop to e3 and then up to d4. However, I played it immediately trying to trade off bishop c3, which is bad here because it has a little tactical problem which drops a pawn. So pawn takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, and now black gets in its other freeing move, b5. And not only a freeing move, it's pretty much going to force, for the most part, winning a pawn, or at least putting significant pressure on here. It's quick chess, so I didn't find the best move. Simplest is just to play rook to f1. This is not happening in the game. I'm going to show you a quick variation. So if I play rook to f1, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, he can't basically take the pawn because I end up winning back the e-pawn. And it turns out to be a solid position, or it's still roughly equal. In the game, I decided to try to pry open some lines on the king side, which unfortunately also gives my king a little bit of air. So I played g4. He plays the rook over to c5 to put extra pressure on the pawn, and then I decided to continue my let's break and open lines on the king side with f4. He played queen b6, threatening some nasty little discoveries down the down the diagonal there, the a7 g1 diagonal. So, and he probably would have been much better off just to trade the pawns and win the pawn rather than go for this route. So I got out of that discovery with king h2, and he played pawn takes pawn. Instead of recapturing the pawn, I played b4. He plays rook over to b5, threatening to win another pawn. And at this point, I wasn't so concerned about that. I went ahead and played f5 to try to open again some lines over by the king. He should have probably played d5 at this point, and things are looking pretty good for him. However, he played the move rook to f8, which is not really the best of moves. Actually allows me to equalize and just simply drops the c-pawn at this point. So queen takes e4 check. Now he plays d5, and I played rook takes d5. Again, trades I'm not too worried about. We have a position with less in material, and it's pretty much looking pretty equal. However, unfortunately, my opponent made a bit of a tactical blunder here, and he played queen b8 check. If you want to pause the video and see if you can find the winning move for white here, it would be a good opportunity to do so. But at any rate, so first thing I do is I block with the rook here, and then I have my own discovered check by doing so. And after he moves the king, I then win the rook on b5 with queen takes b5. Play wrapped up pretty quickly here. He played queen c7, I played king g2 to get out of the pin on the rook. He attacked my queen. At this point I had a very quick, faster win by playing rook takes e7. That line would go rook takes e7, queen takes e7, f6 check, queen takes it, queen goes to d7 check, removing the defender from the queen, king moves to g8 presumably, and rook takes queen, and I'm a full queen up. However, I didn't see that. I just retreated. So from this position, instead of playing rook takes e7, I retreated the queen back to e2, and then he played rook b7, and here again I win the queen basically, or his remaining material with rook takes e7. After queen takes 7, he resigned after f6. The main line goes that he has to pretty much capture the queen, then rook takes it, and if he takes the rook, then I have a nice queen f3, forking his king and rook. Alright, that was my game. Feel free to throw in some comments if you like. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you did, feel free to again comment and say so on that as well. Alright, thank you for watching.